All right, welcome to episode 8, I believe, of the Dependable Dad podcast. Today, I have a guest with me, friend from mentorship and getting closer to the United States now. All of my guests have been from overseas, but from Toronto, Mike Levine, who is the owner and the coach and for his brand, the Mindful Method, which will be fun for us to chat about today. Just a great coach and a great guy. Been super helpful for me in my journey as an online coach, and really excited to have him on today. So thanks for coming on, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Jen. Excited to be here. Jeff, rather.
So, we're off to a good start.
Yeah.
So, Mike, your specialty, like you work predominantly with men over 30, which is kind of your demographic where you are, kind of lose belly fat and get pretty lean. The results that you get your guys in for you are pretty impressive. If you ever head to Mike's Instagram, you'll see he's pretty ripped over there. So, as you kind of think in terms of what it is that drew you to this demographic and why you like working with guys and for you personally, what about this stage of life? Because I'm that, right? I'm a male over 30, right? Who's busy. What about that draws you and you think it's an important thing to kind of dive into?
Yeah, great question. So it kind of started, I guess, 10 years ago or so, with how kind of Mindful Method came to be. Right. It was me kind of going through, I had a traumatic brain injury in 2013, and it started with me literally healing myself. So I went through a ton of different alternative therapies and really kind of hacked my way through my recovery process using no kind of prescribed medication, trying to heal the body naturally itself, right? With alternative supplements, alternative forms of therapy, and really compiled an awesome, from the last 10 years since 2013, an amazing way to kind of really help men specifically achieve their optimal health. So yes, my tagline is helping men over 30 look good, shirt off, drop belly fat, and build a little bit of lean muscle. But really, Mindful Method is digging into all aspects of Jeff's life, right? How's Jeff's sleep, stress, energy? How much is Jeff moving on a daily basis? Is he strength training? Is he doing a ton of cardio? And kind of looking at all different aspects. And this is, very conveniently, I've crafted it into my step one, which is my 12-week online signature coaching program. So that over 10 years is kind of how I formulated it, through a variety of different trial and error to kind of really hack my own health and get to kind of where I am today. It's been an ongoing kind of cool process and journey there.
For sure. Yeah. I know you just shared this recently on social media, but can you kind of share a little bit more about that event, right? And kind of some of the hacks and methods that you tried, some that worked and some that didn't for you, that obviously became the cornerstones for the Mindful Method.
Yeah, so I guess in the beginning I was quite limited into what I could and couldn't do when I was kind of recovering from the traumatic brain injury. So I got clear on what exactly I could do, what I could focus on, and really dialed that in. So what that looked like was riding a stationary bike for 20 to 30 minutes at a certain heart rate, 140 to 150 beats per minute. And I could do yoga. And that's kind of where my journey really started in health and wellness, was focusing on myself, realizing what I could handle. I was off strength training for 2 years, something I really loved and kind of grew up with, super athletic, playing a lot of different sports. And just kind of realized and really got in tune. This is the mindfulness component, the mindful to the method of what my body could actually handle, right? So I was not allowed to go for a run. If I started going for a run, start getting headaches, fatigue, and have to dial it back, right? Almost kind of feeling like I was hungover without even having a drink, right? I used to drink. I haven't drank in over 10 years, but if I did have that drink, it would really wipe me out for the next day. So again, this is what I get clear on, when I'm working with busy dads, business owners, entrepreneurs, is like, what are you actually putting into your system, right? Whether it's food, whether it's drinks, whether it's, your social life, what kind of, in Jeff's entire life, what does that make up of? It's not just in the kitchen, not just in your gym, but all those little habits that kind of make that up and go in between. So yeah, that's kind of where it started. I got clear on, in terms of the activity I could handle, right? Getting clear on the food that would actually nourish me. I started and tried a vegetarian diet and realized that was not for me, and needed real good quality protein to kind of get back on my feet and get to where I wanted to go. So understanding in terms of nutrition what I needed and what I really had to implement into my diet to heal the brain, fattier fishes, for instance, omega-3s, to kind of give the brain that boost it needed to really recover from what I was going through at the time. So, forced me to dig into my fitness first and foremost, of what I could only do, my nutrition of what I needed to really implement, add to kind of promote healing and recovery. And then the mindfulness component, that's, where I really dug into my yoga practice, right? And doing yoga to really connect the mind and the body to the breath, right? Getting back to my breathing, and we take it for granted. I lost my breath in 2013 and now have kind of recultivated it through the last 10 years of my recovery. And now this is what I coach and teach on in my online program. So, yeah.
I love that. So when you started, right, for you, it was activity came first. Like what can my body handle? Is that where you start with your clients, or do you start with the breathing? Do you start with the nutrition? Where do you tend to start when you're working with clients as they first come into your programming and working with you?
Yeah, great question, Jeff. I think, again, it's very unique to the individual. I like to assess and do a deeper dive, on our initial call. Jeff, where are you currently at? I've got 3 kids. I'm a super busy dad. I'm running my own business at home. And, I'm working 8 to 10 hours a day, right? So the idea is to understand where Jeff currently is right now, where he wants to get to, and what he can actually handle right now. So if body weight workouts from home feels good for Jeff and it's not too much strain on him and his family life and his business, that's where I'd like you to start, right? And we're going to slowly kind of start with a foundation and a baseline and try to work you up, progress you over a series of 12 weeks. So I do like movement in the beginning. Strength training, yes, is one of my core pillars of the program. Really dependent on the person, whether you're in your 30s, your 50s. I have clients in their 60s. So again, it depends on your current training experience, any limitations or injuries you have, where you're currently training, if you have your cool own home gym or you're actually going to a gym. And then dialing in all your little habits, right? So is Jeff actually drinking, his 2 liters of water every day, right? What is Jeff actually eating to fuel his body? What's he actually putting into his mouth? How's he grocery shopping? How's he preparing his meals? And then looking at sleep. Sleep's a huge one that I realized through my own recovery that I needed to dial in, right? As you know. So yeah, I think it's...
Yeah, as a dad with young kids, man, sleep's you never know it's like when you get a cold and you never appreciate breathing as much as when you have a cold, like being able to breathe through your nose. So you never appreciate sleep until you have kids and you're like, man, what I wouldn't give. But absolutely. Absolutely. So so those are similar to my kind of 3 main pillars. I think that's probably accurate to every coach that you and I talk to or work with. Like those are the 3 pillars of success in your fitness, because I think you and I both have discovered the longer you do this, the more the brain, like the more you realize that your mental health and how you're thinking about it impacts the physical health and vice versa, right? So mindfulness is oftentimes neglected. So I'd love to go kind of a pillar at a time, if that works for you, and kind of think through some of the kind of your main principles and things like that. So you started to touch on the movement side of things, the exercise side of things, the strength training side of things. So particularly working with guys over 30, right? Life kind of shifts a little bit versus when you said you played a lot of sports growing up. Like it's different when all of a sudden you hit 30 and beyond. Like your body doesn't maybe do everything that you might want it to do. So as you're thinking about that, what are some kind of benchmarks for training for you with strength training for men? And obviously this can be applied to women as well, but predominantly for men, as you get over 30, that you think are, hey, these are key concepts when you're thinking about strength training that are important to incorporate, either do or don't do.
Yeah, I guess first part of that question is understanding what the client, what Jeff can actually handle or physically do, right? So looking at, and I think to answer your question or what you're driving home at is maybe compound movement. So the way I program for my clients is full body, minimum 3 days a week, right? So you're doing upper and lower in the same day, also adding in core. So right behind me, I've got, my key fundamental movements that I'm incorporating into strength training, right? So I'm assessing your squat, your hinge pattern, so a deadlift, a lunge, so a single leg movement, your push, and your pull, and then ideally a carry, and kind of core is kind of key fundamentals of my programming, and that's where I really test and see if you can handle, if you can manage it, and what your capabilities and capacity are, right? Given kind of what we're working with Jeff today, right? If he's got 3 kids, how much time constraint he has, what kind of equipment he's got, and kind of what you can physically handle, right? Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Yeah. So as you're thinking about what somebody can physically handle, because so if it's me, right, and I'm listening to this, how do I know what I can physically handle? Like if I'm doing that myself, what's, because you started in a gym, right, as a trainer, and now you're online. I still have time in a gym, so it's a lot easier if you're standing in front of somebody to be like, that looks like garbage. So how do you do it online, or how would you do it for yourself to kind of test as I'm going through these different movement patterns to see how am I moving, and where would you start with each of those movement patterns?
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost, before I put you into any kind of program or routine, I want to see how Jeff can actually move. So I'm doing that assessment typically over virtually to see, how's his squat, how's your push-up, how's your hinge movement, how's your lunge, and either realizing that we need to regress, progress it, modify it, and understanding your capabilities, right? If you have limited overhead range of motion, then we've clearly got to modify overhead movements. That's kind of where I start, kind of assess what Jeff can actually do and handle, and then kind of build the program from there. Does that make sense to you?
Sure. Yeah. So then as you're seeing people who've made progress, right, and who are now into it, people that I know you have clients that you've worked with for a long period of time, when you're thinking about somebody who's gotten to a point and they feel like, all right, I've kind of got the basics down. I can do, whatever. I can goblet squat. I can do push-ups, and I have some of these. Where do you kind of go from there? And where this is something I've thought about as I work with populations of people beyond the age of 30, certainly beyond the age of 45, 50 years old, like kind of the risk reward factor with things like that. Because I know you tend to do good amount of barbell training, barbell squats and things like that. Is that something you continue with your clients? Is that something that you're a little bit more hesitant to do? What are your thoughts on progressing beyond the basics? And when you've reached a point, is it, hey, what's the point of diminishing returns on this?
Yeah, no, great question. Again, I think it comes back to the individual, the client in front of me, kind of where they want to go with it and how quickly they'd like to progress. So yes, I'm a big advocate of barbell lifting. You can make awesome progress in a very short amount of time and increase the load on the body, as you know. One part of my coaching is, I've done this recently with a number of clients, is actually building out a home gym that's going to work for you, that's super convenient, right? So if you're a busy dad at home, and you progress past beyond the basics. It's like, okay, Jeff, let's take it to that 2.0 version of Jeff, and let's get him if he wants to get shredded, if he wants to build some real lean muscle and look the way he wants to look on the beach for his next vacation. I can help you build that kind of cool gym that's going to feel good for you, that's going to have some key pieces in your home gym that will really kind of help you move the needle and progress. So yeah, continuing to assess the client all the way throughout, and realizing another part of my coaching is setting some real tangible goals. Does Jeff really want to move some serious weight on his lifts, right? You want to hit 300 pounds on your back squat. Sure, we can get you there, right? So how are we going to get you there? We're going to dial it back, right? So every week we need to focus on X, Y, Z and gradually progress, right? Looking at your movement pattern, right? So sending me videos on your squats, all your lifts, right? How is Jeff actually moving? Can we tweak it? Can we modify it? Can we improve his breathing? Can we improve your technique, right? Is kind of how I look at it. So yeah, when I'm checking in with my clients on a regular basis, it's constantly, I'm always thinking of like, how can we keep progressing this? And one part of my coaching is going beyond, I guess, the parameters of the gym, right? If Jeff wants to crush a triathlon, awesome. Let's train sports specific, right? I've taken clients in to purchase their very own road bike, and now they're into cycling and love it, right? I work with a number of cyclists, a number of elite athletes as well, that are training sports specific to improve power, their output, their performance, and compete, right? Compete at a very high level. So yeah, it really depends on who I'm working with, who's in front of me, and how much they like that extra push. You know, I love giving clients a little bit of a push, get out of your comfort zone. Lately, you know, cold plunging, hot cold therapy has been a big thing I've been, talking about with my clients. I don't know if you've seen that or not, as a way to boost recovery, improve performance, sleep better, and kind of feel better overall, right? Huge benefits for your mental health as well. So yeah, it's I'm constantly trying to understand who's in front of me and where I could potentially maybe nudge Jeff one way to see, can we get him to that 2.0 version that he never even thought was possible? One of my favorite client stories is a dad, 3 kids, very busy business owner, has literally told me he's never felt better than he has working with me this last year in his entire life at 40 years old. So to kind of hear that, to realize that, to continuously push him a little bit, a little bit out of his comfort zone is, I think, totally great for the body, your mental health, and your physical health, to push your limits, right?
I love it. I think there's so much good stuff there. And I think the principle that you kind of just hammered on is there's where you are, and then there's just a little bit above. And you talk about, like, this guy's been working with you for a year, right? Like, it didn't happen in 2-3 weeks. This is having a little bit of a longevity perspective on it. And I think that working with elite athletes, working with cyclists, things like that, like you have a goal and you work backward and you set a realistic timeline for what it takes to get there. And I think doing that where you're making progress a little bit at a time versus trying to make giant leaps. So when you're thinking about your clients and having that conversation with them to push them out of their comfort zone to make a little bit of progress, how do you set up realistic expectations for the results of that? So, like, for instance, you have different ones, like you have an elite athlete who wants to perform, or somebody who's never cycled before who wants to perform a triathlon, right? There's that, right? You have somebody who wants to lose, 15 pounds of body fat and have a six-pack, right? How do you set up realistic? Or somebody who wants to squat 300 pounds. How do you go about kind of setting the expectation for how that's a great goal, but what's the path going to look like to get there?
Yeah, no, great question. In the beginning, it's nailing the fundamentals and the basics, right? So can Jeff strength train consistently 3 times a week? Can he sleep minimum 7 undisrupted hours the majority of the time without his kids kind of, getting him up at night? can he nail his eating habits, right? Is Jeff eating real whole food the majority of the time, or is he snacking? Is he Uber Eats? Is he constantly out with his wife because he doesn't want to cook, right? Is Jeff able to do a grocery shop once a week, right? So nailing these key fundamental habits that are actually going to have a huge impact on the whole course of, whether it's specifically improving performance, whether it's improving body composition, really is a test to see what Jeff can handle in the beginning, right? If Jeff can handle all that and he can do it consistently, if he can nail 80% of it, Jeff's going to make progress at the end of the day. If he can't, then we need to realize, okay, Jeff, let's dial it back a bit. Let's maybe work on one or two key fundamental habits: sleep, strength training, right? Let's start there. Typically, I try to identify the biggest challenges in the beginning that you might have. You mentioned sleep because you're a busy dad with a few kids at home is a challenge for you, right? So dialing in your sleep routine, right? What time is Jeff going to sleep at? What time is he waking up? What's his evening routine like? Is he, glued to his social media, checking his DMs right before bed? Or is he, practicing a little bit of mindfulness? Can he put down his electronics and just kind of sit, breathe, and kind of reset for the next day, So again, really understanding who's in front of me, what their biggest challenges are in the beginning, and we're just going to kind of lean into that. And if I can help you overcome that, the blinders might come off, and then it's like, okay, we're going to have some huge wins and big progress once we can kind of accomplish that and achieve that on a consistent basis, is number one. So,
yeah. Love that. So you started to make this transition for me, which is great. But and you talked about cold plunging, and you talked about sleep, and all these things that are about. I think you use a phrase quite frequently with like a reset, right? You just said it about like a reset at night. You will frequently post like a Sunday reset, right? So this cold plunge being a little bit of a reset. So talk a little bit about resetting and what that means to you, and what are some of the ways that you go about it, and why you think it's important.
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Yeah, I love the Sunday reset. So an active recovery day. So that does not mean lying horizontal on the couch all day because you've had a super busy week. It's taking that time out of your busy day and busy week to kind of go for a walk in nature, get some fresh air, get some steps in, right? Get some movement. I'm a big proponent of getting clients to move as much as they can, whether they're at home, whether they're on vacation, it never stops. So yeah, that reset looks like filling up your own cup, right? So if you've had a super busy week, personal side, business side, maybe taking a digital detox, right? Take a break from social media, take a break from your phone, do something that's going to fill up your own cup, right? So whether that's a cold plunge, maybe a little shock to the body, maybe feel like super, I just saw you take a deep breath there. It's going to force you to breathe, right? Force you to really focus on your breathing. Doing like a yoga class, right? And some guys are very hands off with the idea of the word yoga. So I call it a stretch, right? Take 10 to 15 minutes out of your day. It doesn't have to be an hour, to really just get the body moving, see how your joints are feeling, and just kind of check in with yourself, right? That's kind of the idea behind the reset, so that Jeff can wake up Monday morning ready to crush the week as a busy dad, a parent, a business owner, and really make some real gains and progress, right? So without that, I find it's a recipe for maybe injury, for maybe overdoing it, for maybe just getting overwhelmed with having too many boxes to check off for the week. So yeah, I think it's important, not only physically, but mental health as well, right? To reset. Sure. Yeah.
Well, I love what you said there about filling up your own cup. I think parents understand this almost more than anybody, right? Like you can't pour from an empty cup. And life requires you to pour out, as a parent, even as, you as a business owner, life, work, all these things are requiring things of you. And you get to a point where, that's what burnout is, right? Where we're just like, we got nothing. And certainly on the physical side of things, yeah, you overtrain and that can lead to injury. But it just makes all the other things that much harder. Getting in to get your strength training, being intentional with your eating, being intentional with your sleep, all those things, because you feel like I gotta feel like you then you go for the quick things, right? The quick fixes to try to fill your cup if you're not filled, right? Like you go to the social media, you go to the Netflix, like, I need to just, I'm tired. I need this. So that idea of filling up your cup. I want to talk about this cold plunge thing a little bit, because this is something, it's so popular, and you do it, and a lot of people who I'm not gonna sit here and say I have any desire whatsoever to put myself into it, but I understand. One, from a physical perspective, I absolutely get that there's a lot of physical benefits, but there are things that are physically good for me that I still probably can't get myself to, like, self-inflicted torture. But I think the principle of a cold plunge, one, from a reset perspective, but the idea of doing something you don't really want to do, like physically, is not enjoyable, right? Like it doesn't matter how many times you've done a cold plunge. You're not like, yeah, I can't wait to jump into this like 30-degree water and sit there for 2 minutes. But the idea of doing something that is difficult intentionally, I think that there's something really victorious in that. Is that a little bit of your experience with it? Kind of like the I do hard things even when I don't want to sort of a piece. Is that a bigger component of it than or is that like just kind of a nice side effect?
Yeah, I think it's there's two parts to that. It is doing something challenging for yourself, for the body, for the mind, that you typically would not want to do on any given day of the week. I did this. I hosted my clients for the holiday party, and we had a number of people try it, a number of clients who had never done this before. It was brand new to them. I kind of guided them through it, and it was an awesome experience. Some of them may never do it again. Others were really intrigued. Like, one example is one client, it was just the shock he needed. He was dealing with some mental health, a little bit of career stuff going on at the time. And it was like, wow, it lit a fire under him and got him going. And now he's a huge advocate. I think he's doing it almost every day. In his bathtub, he'll get the cold tap going, and he's doing it, and he's realizing how important, yes, to start your day with something difficult, because everything else after that is super easy. But also for the mental health component of it, right? To focus on your breathing, as hard as, whether it's a cold plunge, a cold shower, something that the body is just not typically used to. Is just, there's so many benefits more after it than going through it during, right? I think is the way I look at it. And it's always awesome to see people try it for the first time and like walking on eggshells. And, as long as you can focus on your breath and really calm the body down, you can do it, right? Which really means you can do anything, and that's kind of the principles around my coaching, right? If we kind of dial it back, kind of piece it down one step at a time, Jeff can get in a cold plunge. I can guarantee it almost every day. Maybe you'll try it this weekend.
I mean, it's something that you feel like, all right, I feel like I should try it because it's so popular, but it's also like, oh man. But I love what you said there at the end, which is, if you can do it, then you can do anything. And it's a little bit of mind over matter sort of a thing, because there's so, and mindfulness is, there's so much in the world that's telling us, like, don't do XYZ. Like you and I have talked about it, or John Goodman, who's our kind of business mentor, says it all the time. Like, if you do things that are like normal, good things for your health, like, not drinking alcohol as an example, or, going to the grocery store or exercising a few days a week, you're like, oh, you're a fanatic, right? But you would never hear that, like, or it would be taboo to say it about somebody who orders Uber Eats every day. You'd be like, oh, you're a fanatic for Uber Eats. Like, that's a weird thing. But we're faced, I think, in the world right now with so many things that are not what it is that we want to do. And so it is a lot about overcoming what normal has been oftentimes for a long time. When you get guys coming into your program who their normal has not been what they need it to be in order to get to the place that they want to get to. And so it's reestablishing normal. And so having that kind of be a little bit of a benchmark, like, listen, if you could do this, then what else? What is going to stand in your way for doing this? So when you're thinking about your breath, you talked about that a few times. You lost your breath back in 2013, and breathing is important and all this kind of stuff. What are some of the principles of breathing for you throughout the day, whether it's in a cold plunge in the evening? What are some of those things? Because that's a big thing that I know that you focus on is breathing, and whether it's with the exercise and et cetera, that you're like, hey, these are the principles of breathing.
Yeah, great question. So first and foremost is taking that pause to stop in your busy day and noticing your breath, right? There's quite often, more often than not, we're rushing from one meeting to the next, to one email, to the next DM, and we're not actually really noticing our breath, right? So nasal breathing has been a big thing lately. That's been quite common, popular, a ton of benefits. So focusing on deep nasal breaths, and breathing from the diaphragm, right? So all my team calls I do on a monthly basis, we start with a little bit of mindfulness. So one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly, and let's just kind of focus on our breath, right? And notice and check in with ourselves, right? How does Jeff currently feel today? Is he anxious? Is he stressed? Is he taking deep breaths, or are they just shallow breaths, right? So, there is so much to the breath that we kind of often overlook, right? And if we can, the more we can focus on our breath today, the more down the line, longer term, it's going to really help us and set us up for success. So no matter what you're doing, whether you're playing a sport, you're strength training, you're cold plunging, remembering that you can focus on your breath in those challenging moments, right? So if you're stressed at work, if you're in a really heavy set, come back to your breath, right? If you're in a heated debate or argument with your spouse or partner, right? Stop, try to pause, reflect, take a breath. As hard as that might sound, right? We're typically not breathing in the moment from what I've learned. So yeah, like the breath shows up in so many amazing ways in our life that we often, again, take for granted. And I took it for granted in 2013, and it's been a constant kind of way for me to rebuild it and kind of share it with everyone else in the community and who I'm working with. So never forget the breath, right?
Yeah, for sure. And so like kind of take me through, I think that the bookends of the day, I think are important when you're thinking about the breath and the reset, and then also the kind of the ignition of the day. I think that you think both of those you're big about, like win your morning and then also the reset at the end of the day. So let's kind of start in the morning with the breath and noticing your breath in the morning, and what are some of the things that you go through at the beginning of your day that kind of set you up mindfully for the day in front of you, because you're a busy guy, you got a lot going on, and it's very easy in our scenario to be like, oh, I haven't moved from in front of my computer for 8 hours. So how do you go about setting yourself for the intentionality that you want to for the rest of the day?
Yeah, great question. I think that starts with your morning, right? So winning your mornings, taking some time to carve out, whether it's 2, 5, 10 minutes. I like to take a minimum of 10 minutes to really focus on my breathing, right? So there's a ton of great apps out there. I prefer not to use an app and just kind of really sit and focus on my breathing, right? Sometimes thoughts come up, sometimes great ideas come up. I'll definitely have a pen and paper next to me if something does come up that I really think I need to share. And it's setting that intention for the day, right? As cliche as that might sound, is like, what are 1 or 2, 3 things that I really want to work on and focus on today? If I can nail those, I'll likely have a great day, and kind of everything else will kind of fall into place as it does. And remembering to pause as busy as our days get, right? So I like, as you mentioned, we can very easily get stuck and glued to our screen. So when I've got at least 5 minutes, I'll get outside and push myself to get outside as quick as I can to get some fresh air, to get off my phone, to get off the screens, and just focus on taking some deep breaths. Maybe it's walking, combined with some movement as well. Maybe it's a movement snack. I talk a lot about with my clients as well, right? Movement snack doesn't always have to be in the gym, right? So you can do a squat, push-up, jumping jack, get the body moving, get the blood flowing as well, get your heart rate up a little bit as well. So yeah, starting the day to win your morning, taking that time as busy as your day gets, whether you've got 3 kids at home, you're a business owner, or all of the above, to really set the tone for your day, set that intention, to win your morning. If you can win your morning, you're going to win the rest of your life, essentially, right? So that's kind of how I talk about it.
Yeah, I love that. I think that there's, again, especially for parents, because I know a lot of people listening are parents. It's very easy to like, all right, you wake up with the first kid who wakes up screaming, and then you're just like in survival mode the rest of the day, and you get to the end of the day, and days just run together, and it starts to feel like, did I accomplish anything? Was there anything for that? And so there's something to trying to take, 5 minutes ahead of time before the day starts, or I try to wake up like 30 minutes before my first kid. Something as simple as, same idea where, I'm gonna set my attention for the day in terms of like, all right, what are the, these are the two things that come hell or high water need to get done today in order for me to be like, all right, hit it today. And then for me, it's I'm a big, like, food is a big driver for me in terms of like that where my food goes, so does my day, sort of thing. And I think we've talked a little bit about it, but like, all right, if I have enough time to like sit down and have a breakfast that's like of quality, then that's going to set me up kind of going forward for the day as well. So how does kind of mindfulness play into the nutrition side of things for you with your clients?
Yeah, great question. We talked about this on our team call, funny enough, yesterday, mindful eating, right? When cravings come up, late night cravings, has Jeff actually eaten 3 full, healthy, nutritious meals throughout the day, right? So mindful eating means taking some time to sit down away from your phone and your screens to enjoy your food, to chew your food, to take one bite at a time, right? It's so easy to just kind of shovel it in and kind of move on to the next thing, right? So mindfulness as we eat is, definitely super important. I think it's lost in today's society very easily, right? We're just constantly rushing to the next. So, and nourishing yourself with good, wholesome food, right? I preach this nonstop, is real whole food. Anything more than 5 ingredients is likely something you don't want to put in your mouth, and nor should you be feeding it to your kids, right? Like it's, I have clients who understand that they need to eat real food, but they're still feeding their kids maybe fast food because the kids want that. The kids are dictating that, right? So mindfulness not only for you, but for your family as well. Like, and realizing how important food is to fuel the body, right? To nourish, to satiate, right? To help you feel good, to improve your mental health, and boost your energy. Taking that time, right, to pause, throughout your day and have a meal away from your desk, I think is a big thing I talk about too. Try the best you can, if you can, to not eat at your desk. Get to another room if you're working from home. Get out of your office if you can. Go get some fresh air and find a quiet space to enjoy your food, right? One thing at a time. The mindfulness component is we can only really do one thing to its full capacity, right? So if Jeff wants to eat, focus on food. If Jeff is posting to social media, work on that social media post. Trying to do 20 things at once, we all know, just kind of gets watered down and nothing gets done to its fullest. So that's kind of the biggest thing with mindfulness is setting that intention, whether it's to win your morning, whether it's to have a wholesome meal, whether it's to crush, an awesome strength training workout. Is to do everything you're doing with intention and only try to do that one specific thing, right? So
So then you work with parents, right? You work with dads, and some of the realities of that are, that can be logistically a challenge when there are other beings that are requiring your attention. Because I absolutely love exactly what you're saying. Like, one of my things that I talk about with clients all the time when you're eating is like, put your knife and fork down between every bite, right? Like it's an opportunity to take a breath and appreciate what it is that you're doing. Like, if you go to like a really fancy restaurant, you get like this filet mignon, like with this whatever, and you have like, and you're gonna savor every single bite in your mouth, right? Like, it doesn't have to be that extreme, but like, appreciate what you're eating. Otherwise, you're just gonna forget that you ate and want to eat again. So, from a principles perspective, absolutely love that. Sometimes from the logistics, though, it's like, all right, well, I sit down to eat, and I'm like, all right, we're going to sit down and we're going to eat as a family, but then this one throws the plate upside down and runs away, and this one's screaming, and then it's like, all right, I just got to shovel this in before it all descends into chaos. So as working with parents or some of the logistics, I know that you work with guys that have like really like high stress jobs that are, lawyers or things like that, who are working 80, 90 hours a week kind of thing. And the idea that I'm going to, be, not to say that you can't do it, but how do you kind of adapt mindfulness for the different scenarios, if that makes any sense? I don't know if I'm asking that well.
Yeah, no, I think it's, first of all, understanding the logistics with that particular client, right? So if you've got 3 kids that are running around the house, it's like, okay, maybe it's time to figure out when and works best for Jeff, right? So maybe it's setting some time before or after you feed the kids to really fuel your tank, right? Maybe it's not always eating with the kids. Maybe it's, either waking up a little bit earlier to get your workouts in first and foremost, so that you've got the rest of the day to show up for your clients, your family, and everyone else who kind of needs you in your life. So yeah, there's some great tools to kind of make the process a lot more convenient. There's some awesome meal delivery services here in Toronto that I'll incorporate with certain clients who have a really busy schedule, right? That just don't have time to cook, and that's okay, right? So I can be flexible, I can be accommodating, we can figure out a game plan together that's going to work for Jeff, right? If Jeff just doesn't have the time to cook a meal, that's okay, right? We're going to figure out how we can get the best food on Jeff's plate in front of him consistently, let's say 17 of 21 meals, right? So finding those alternatives to make kind of your lifestyle a little bit easier, a little bit more manageable for you, I think is the biggest thing that I really strive for to actually get your results and help you make progress. So yeah, like sometimes kids are throwing things around and it's just tough, right? We all know I haven't been in that position yet, but I have to look forward to it and hear it from you. That's a huge challenge, right? So that would be when Jeff, we'd hop on a chat and let's figure it out, right? Let's dig deep on, what can Jeff actually do in that moment when everything kind of goes to chaos, or realizing what Jeff can control, right? Like this comes back to where I started in 2013. All I really could control was kind of my health, what I was eating, and how I was moving, right? And sleep, right? So maybe it's just finding that moment for yourself in the morning, right? To kind of set that intention to get your workout in, to maybe set a few meals aside for the day, a little bit of meal prep, so that if everything just kind of goes off the deep end, that at the very least, Jeff has a few healthy snacks that he can really just take 5 minutes out of his day, or meals to really nourish himself with when he's trying to juggle everything else he's doing in his life.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's the key principle here with it, is that mindfulness is a matter of being intentional, right? And so you control what you can control. You control the controllable, and recognize that everybody is in a different stage. Everybody has their own challenges. Everybody, while my stage may look a certain, challenge way, your stage has different challenges for its own reasons, right? And so finding the things that you can control, whether it is, like for me, I know dinner's going to be a disaster. That's a really just a bonkers time a day. And from 4:30 until bedtime is just
right.
All right, let's just make it to the end of the day kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so that one's maybe not the best, but I can control breakfast by getting up a little bit earlier. Lunchtime, oftentimes the kids are not around, and so I can do that. Or if I have them, it's usually one, right? So that's one that's a little bit more controllable. I can control the workout. I control some of the movement. So I think we can get into the all or nothing mentality here, and that was kind of why I wanted to ask the question. And I think you alluded to it really well, which is, listen, it's perfection isn't the standard, right? You're not looking for 21 of 21 meals. You're not looking for 100%, but we're not great. This isn't math class, where 100% is what we're aiming for. 80% is an A+, because that allows us the ability to deal with the realities of life that come up, because we don't live in a vacuum. So I think when you're thinking about what I've kind of gathered from everything that I've ever heard you say about this is that mindfulness is about intentionality, and intentionality is about controlling what you can control, not trying to control the things that you can't control.
Totally. Yeah.
Is that accurate to a little bit of my
understanding? Yeah. No, yeah, to a T. I think, that all or none mentality comes up quite a bit. I think with clients, especially just getting started, they want to crush it right out of the gate. They want to just nail every single thing. And it's like, reset expectations, right? You're not most likely going to crush everything right out of the gate, right? That's okay. And again, if you can nail 80%, if you can hit 17 to 21 meals, if you can do 8 to 9 of 12 workouts every month, you're going to make progress, right? And if you have intention with every time you're in the gym, making a meal, the food that goes in your mouth, you're going to get results, right? At the end of the day. So having that intention with every single thing you're doing, whether it's, managing your kids at a meal or getting in your workout or your sleep schedule too, right? At the end of the day is going to have a huge impact on your waistline, really. At the end of the day.
For sure. For sure. And just how you feel too. And I think that you said it exactly right with like, hey, if you can do these things with intention, like, when you talk about movement and all these things, I just talked about it with my clients recently. It's like a lot of double dipping here. Like you can't do more than two things at once with intention, but you can be intentional about what it is that you're doing. So like if I'm trying to get movement in, and I'm also trying to get time with my kids, well, those can be together. I don't have to just sit and watch my kid color, right? My kid and I can run laps around our house or go for a walk, right? Like it's how do we bring intentionality with what we're trying to do into the realities of our situation a little bit.
I think that comes back to also habit stacking is a big one I talk about too, right? So, I talk about the 3-10 method. So after every meal, going for a 10-minute walk, right? If you can't go for a walk around your house, do some stairs, get moving, right? To improve digestion, get your metabolism going, get the blood flowing. So stacking these habits I've found, especially with clients just getting started, do a grocery shop and do a little bit of a meal prep, right? Prep, some healthy snacks, right? If you can pair these two things together, James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits, it's just going to make it so much easier, more mentally for you to kind of break things down and kind of work through everything that's going on into your day, So when in your morning, you're starting off with maybe a little bit of movement, a little bit of breathing, right? A little bit of stretching. To kind of pair certain things to kind of break down the day to kind of really move the needle at the end of the day. Yeah,
absolutely. No, I think that's so huge because it's a matter of moving the needle maybe a little bit smaller, right, than we think it is. Like I think a lot of clients, and you've said this a couple times, is we come in and we think that we're gonna do everything all at once, and some of the realities of that are it's maybe you're overreaching. So realizing where you are and trying to move the needle one little notch at a time, and by stacking those habits on what you're already doing, because then it becomes yours versus just trying to fit what you're doing to somebody else's method, but rather this is my mindful method. This is I'm being mindful about what I'm trying to do, and I'm trying to plan out what's going next. Well, Coach, really appreciate it, Mike, you coming on. Anything you want to kind of leave the group with? I'll link Mike's Instagram handle in the show notes and things like that. But anything like a last nugget or anything you kind of want to leave the audience with here today?
Yeah, I think take it one day at a time and work on 1% better every single day. It's something I preach and talk about all the time. It's you're not going to be able to do it all at once, but if Jeff can really work on that one specific habit every single day, you're going to make progress. And that's kind of that's a big thing I preach about and talk about in my program is one thing at a time. Yeah,
one thing at a time, one moment at a time, just getting a little better every time, and then patience. Patience to let it work. Well, Mike, really appreciate you coming on, my man. Again, thanks for everyone for listening. Yeah, follow Mike on social. His thing will be in the show notes, and his puts out a lot of great stuff, and you can see a lot more about some of the things that I don't talk as much about, like cold plunging and breathing. Just a lot of great stuff that he puts out. So appreciate you coming on, Mike.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it.